Hi, this is Nicole Williams, and this is Compassionate Las Vegas, the podcast.
Welcome to Compassionate Las Vegas, the podcast. I'm your host, Will Rucker, and joining me today is a very, very, very special guest. She's becoming a fast friend, and I think you are going to be so inspired by what she is bringing to our community, the Las Vegas Valley. Please welcome to Compassionate Las Vegas, the podcast, Nicole Williams. Hello, Nicole.
Hello, how are you doing, Will?
I am doing mighty fine. So glad to talk with you now that you've gotten a little sleep.
Yes, and I definitely did get that. It feels like just yesterday, though.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, Nicole puts on a fantastic urban-centered pride. So her event really is specifically for people of color, but of course, everyone is welcome. And it's just, you have to be there. So next year, it'll be back here in Las Vegas, but you've got to go because it's really unique. And she just does everything with such excellence and creativity that I said, I've got to bring her on the podcast and I've got to introduce her to the few, two or three people in Las Vegas that don't already know her. So Nicole, just tell us, like, how did you come up with the idea around doing your event and why you chose to do it?
Well, I chose to do it because definitely having my own marketing agency, it's my job to find holes and niches, target demographics, and see where there is a need for a company in itself. So I also plan and do my own events. And for the last 3 years, I've been doing Pride festivals. And I saw that there was a need for a more cultural aspect to be added to the Las Vegas community. With us being in a city of just awesomeness and the entertainment capital of the world, it's really easy for the community to kind of get lost in the shuffle. So with that being said, and just doing the work for the last 4 years, it was definitely a need for the LGBT community to have a destination place event themed for anybody to come out for a Pride in Las Vegas from any walks of life.
And you just kind of just slid that in. Yeah, because I've got my own marketing company,
Yeah.
That's no small feat.
Start from somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that you're doing this in such a community focus. So the Pride you dubbed House of Love, is that right?
The House of Love is the community event. So the House of Vegas Pride is the communal house of all events, all themed events that welcomes all. So each event for the festival this year was themed off the word house, which is a famous word that we know from the ballroom era, going back to the 70s and all, those days, playing off of that. So it's a familiar word. It's homey. It's good times when people hear the word house, I believe, whether it's house music or a house ball. So all the events were themed off of the word house of love, the playhouse, the exotic house. Like we had like everything.
I was fortunate enough to be a part of the House of Love community event, which was so special because you didn't just provide resources. You had a job fair on site. You had inspirational speakers. You brought community members and elected officials, and the entire spectrum to really bring everyone together because your House of Vegas, the actual Pride event, people from all over the country came to that. But the community fair was specifically for Las Vegas.
And it's done specifically that way. So when I planned the festival, I learned through doing it that it needs to be separate. It's always a welcoming aspect to the festival goers. However, I do remember it is Las Vegas. and it's 72 hours a nonstop event. So respectfully, I don't push them to want to come to the community event because, you know, they have their prize in their own town. So the Community House of Love event is more so for Las Vegas, bringing our community together and creating that inclusiveness and welcoming all.
I wanted to dive a bit deeper. You didn't have to do a community event. The Pride was more than enough. You said 72 hours nonstop. So, I mean, that's an endeavor in and of itself. And I've done community resource fairs, and I know the type of work that goes in to get people to show up on time, you know, all of those things. And you chose to do both. To me, that says you're thinking bigger than just a business. You're really thinking global community and longevity. Talk a little bit more about that.
Well, it's important to have the community event for Pride. With the history of discrimination and prejudice within the community, sometimes we don't feel comfortable going to certain places, or even like you said, a job fair, or feeling like, oh, well, they're going to accept me, you know, if I apply for this. So I feel like there's still some insecurities and some things that we're working through with our allies, that I feel like it's for our community to have a resource fair that is themed with Pride. So you know that anybody and all that are at the community event are for and are allies or already in the community, that you can meet somebody in a more business sense, in a more communal sense, to where those connections can happen locally. Because a lot of times, a lot of people don't know other individuals here in the city. A lot of people, it's a transient town, so people are alone. So it's a place for people to come meet. And that's the goal, to grow it to where people will be able to meet and greet and then receive the resources from our allies that are open to a transgender applying, or, you know, a lesbian applying, that or a person with, you know, just are okay with how they look and how they feel, and not feel uncomfortable in those types of spaces. So it was very important to keep that aspect.
Just like your event, people from literally all over the world watch this podcast. So some are probably sitting here thinking, why would they need that in Las Vegas? It's, you know, Sin City, everything's acceptable in Vegas. Why do we still need that here in 2021?
Well, one, I grew up here in Las Vegas, and we are a city and a town just like anybody else that has the same things. And just going back to where we kind of get lost in the shuffle, that we're the place where you come and you lose yourself. But no, there's real family here. My mom retired here from Nellis Air Force Base. And, you know, I came here at a very young age, and our community is really small, but you still need to gel that togetherness, because we don't go on the strip all the time. You know, we have our regular lives to live, and it's no different from any other town. So it's important that people like us continue to do the work to add that, because it's very far and few between why people move here. But our community workers are very strong and mighty here in Las Vegas, and we work together. And I'm very proud to be a part of that, because when we call, we all come together, you know, for each other and say, all right, Nicole, I'll be there. And I'm appreciative of that, you know, that we're phone calls away. So I feel like we're kind of like a small town in a sense.
Yeah, that's what surprised me the most when I moved here. I am basically a native now because I've been here for 7 years. But when I first moved, I didn't realize how small this place really is. We've got 3 major cities: Henderson, Las Vegas, and North Las Vegas. And even then, with those 3 cities, they are so interconnected that, I mean, you're 3 degrees of separation from everyone. You know, most people are like, yeah, you're 6 degrees. No, in Vegas, it's like 3, maybe 2. And that's just really the way that we operate. But with that, the other thing I noticed is we do seem to be a bit behind as a community, socially and with our technology. If you take the strip out of the equation, we really are kind of a small town still, growing very, very fast, but it's hard to keep up from an infrastructure standpoint with the type of growth we're having from a people standpoint. And I don't know that everyone really recognizes how hard that can be, and specifically for marginalized community like the LGBTQ plus community. I heard you speaking once, and you mentioned that sometimes people even on the strip still encounter issues where they feel afraid or unsafe. What could we do as a community to help make that be eradicated completely, where it doesn't matter where you are, when you're there, you feel safe, whoever you are?
Um, that's like a definitely a unpeeled onion. As I always say, with the platform that I like to be on is more of a larger scale. I'm obsessed with doing large events, multiply in multiple days. But what I do encourage my promoters, volunteers, employees that work with me during the festival and community partners is that I literally beg them to keep doing events on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, keep them diverse, and work together to where it's not so much of feeling like a competition. I used to be a part of the motorcycle world, and one of the most important things I took from that being on part of a national chapter is that there was like coalitions. So on a local level, the national presidents would talk from all the chapters, and they would schedule their annuals respectfully so everybody can have theirs and not feel like you're stepping on anybody's toes. So my mission is to take that and operate it as such. As House of Vegas Pride and even Las Vegas Pride are the cell of the city for a more larger scale that operates to help the entertainment tourism industry for the city, that locally promoters and community workers should keep it going, because without that, that helps me, because you're bringing in people to the city that need to have somewhere to go. And there's groups on Facebook, all kinds of, I'm like probably 20, LGBTQ groups, and we're posting and they're looking for things to do. And I'm constantly campaigning, like, can somebody keep the industry going? And that's what's important, is that respecting each other, that we are a small town to work together as a group, just to keep things going on a weekly, annual, and community basis, so that it can become bigger and larger, and people don't look at Vegas like, oh, there's no gay community, to where it'll start to get known, and then it'll catch on, and we'll probably have some things on the strip, just like it took hip hop, into the 2000s to get a residency. It's the same thing. It's just, it's just evolvement. But we as the people have to make the evolvement work in order for it to get noticed. So the more people involved, the more people doing the work, the better chances for us to create more of a community for ourselves.
So it's what I'm hearing is getting to know people, bringing people together, giving them a chance to see each other, to interact, is really how you see this evolving, and also being respectful of the fact that we are diverse and different people have their own endeavors. And so instead of competing, trying to be more collaborative. Is that right?
Exactamundo. That's the key to it. We have to work together at the end of the day. Separation is not what this world is for. Nobody came to this earth to be alone. And in our community, you have so many people that are looking and moving to Vegas because they think there's something here, and they don't find it. I hear it in groups all the time. So that's what keeps me going. I share what I can. I work with who I can, because I don't have the time to do something weekly or monthly. I'm working on doing a monthly event, but I support anybody and everybody that's doing something, no matter what color, age, or that they see it, so that we can start getting people involved.
As a female, you face a unique intersection of bias and prejudice. And so the fact that you are pulling off the level of events that you're doing is a testament to not only your skill, but your character and your fortitude. The other part of this equation with what you're doing is you have also been invited by others to their stages because of what you're presenting. Can you tell us a little bit about how you are pulling that off?
Well, the toughness comes from, I'll say this, I've been in this work for 15 years. I was groomed by men, down south. The entertainment hip hop industry is not exactly the nicest. So early on, I used to cry a lot. and deal with, the prejudice and the catcalling and not taking me seriously as a graphic designer and event planner. Like, oh girl, I want your number. No, I want to do your flyer. They're like, nah, I want to take you on a date. And they told me early on, like when they were saying that like, you are going to get that. So deal with it. It's going to happen. So stop crying. If this is what you want to do, you got to toughen up and demand your respect. So luckily to have that kind of, friends and mentorship of business partners early on with that. So I just carried little bits of my lessons through my journey of my life to come to this point to where, like I said, again, it comes back to togetherness. When I met Las Vegas Pride, when I did my first Pride in 2018, everybody in the community is like, oh, they're competing. They don't want you around and da 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 da. You're doing it the same weekend. Saw them at an Aviators game in 2019. It was the Pride night, and they were like whispering, like, oh, they're over there. Should we go and talk to them? I'm like, I'm going to go introduce myself, and I'm going to fill them out for me. And at that table was Brady McGill, the president of Las Vegas Pride. And he couldn't have been the most nicest, open, warming, already knew who we were person and was open to helping. And knew that there was a missing link that just they, couldn't really capture all the way because of the lack of our people on the board and involved, the people of color and our culture involved with Las Vegas Pride, so it's not, I'm not blaming them, it's just that we have to be involved if we want to be heard. So instead of trying to come together, like, work with Las Vegas Pride, they respected my space of having my own cultural events and said, okay, well, you can take care of this sector and we'll do this and we'll work together and we support each other. And it was just like that. It was never an issue. And, just by working with each other and developing our relationships and learning each other, just over the past 4 years, it's just gotten stronger. The bond has gotten better and the trust is now there to where now I have the cultural urban stage for 5 hours instead of 2, and they help with the sponsorship. They help cover my costs for the flow and, and help me put up my headliners in the hotels for their festival. So we really do work together to make sure that we are representing the Las Vegas community and also respecting that we are a tourism town and we're all here to make sure that guests that come to Las Vegas are having a good time. So I'm very grateful for their community partnership.
Here's what I just heard you say. It wasn't that there was prejudice or resistance to including the urban community. It was we weren't present yet. And once we made that connection, magic is happening. That's so important for people to hear.
And that's what it is. And it's all in perspective. A lot of people will look at it like, oh, well, they don't have Black people there. They don't have hip hop urban events. Well, are you going to the board meetings and voicing that? Are you showing up and saying what you wanted them to do or suggesting things because they have monthly public meetings? So I'm here to represent that and open that up to where, people know that that's there. And on the other side, we might have not even known, unless we do the research. So I just want to be a vessel and a voice and a resource of letting everybody know all that's here in Las Vegas for everybody. That we already have everything we need. We just need to be present.
Karen Armstrong is quoted as saying that a compassionate community is an uncomfortable community. And the spirit of what that means is you don't ignore the issues that are there. You actually do address them. Sometimes compassion can be seen as soft or, kind of just something that's there is like mushy, but doesn't actually do anything. No, compassion takes action. It's the spirit of moving to alleviate suffering. It's that desire. And so desire leads to action. And that's what I heard in your stories. You took action and said, hey, let's talk. And a little bit of fear, probably, well, are they going to respond or how is this going to turn out? But you did it. And, and actually now I'm thinking about now that I know you a little better, I don't think there was any fear in that for you, but others may.
The fear comes from actually, and I won't go too deep, but just making sure that I have everything I need, that the doors are going to open. that I don't have any surprise pop-up visits, just like with any business, that the fire department comes in and says, oh, you have a chair over there that's blocking an entrance, so you have those fears of just making sure that you have your business in place and taken care of on that scale, that your doors can open. That's what gave me anxiety. I'm more so like, I love doing the work. I love creating and pulling it all together. I'm already working on next year and pretty much ready for my launch almost. But it's the fear of that door opening, because if that door don't open, that means you have to cancel. That's it. That one little thing of making sure that you have everything in place can jeopardize a whole string of things that you can't have it. I'm not worried about who comes. I'm not worried about how much money I make. Whoever comes through that door is meant to be there, and it's my responsibility to create an experience for those who want to participate in that. I never want anybody inside of the festival that doesn't want to be there. I never want anybody around me personally that doesn't want to be around what I'm doing and creating. So I'm never worried about the numbers. It's just making sure that the production is top notch and I have things in place. So the few people that do come don't bash me online. Everybody leaves happy. Everybody's creating a memory. And that's what the most important thing with doing this one at the Artisan, coming out of a pandemic and creating a more homey feel, to where, yeah, we're having all the events in one place. However, you're going to meet new people. You're staying at the hotel. We have suites with pop-up shops and all these other things that people didn't even know was going on for the weekend. It was like a fun house. So I was really happy about how that, but my fear is always making sure the door opens so that we can have the actual event.
I heard two big things in that I want to highlight. One is you are focused on the experience. You have the end in mind in the entire process. And I think that's so important. So as we design our economy, what is the purpose of an economy? What is the end goal? Well, economies are here to serve people. People aren't here to serve the economy. So that's just a little tidbit. We're not here to talk about economics. But the other thing that I heard
on Facebook yesterday in the group, don't get me started.
But the other thing that I heard was really around systems and how interconnected everything is. You used the example of a door being blocked could shut the entire thing down. And I think that if we look at that from a people-centered perspective, if one person isn't doing what they are designed to do, or if something is hindering just one person, the entire system itself can be shut down and will not function. If it's not all the way shut down, it won't function at the level that it should or could. So there's power in just one.
Yes. And I definitely did understand that wholeheartedly this year, the pressure, because when you find a need or a niche, it can either fizzle or it can just ignite and just take off. And this one took off a little faster than I anticipated for growth. So I did endure a little growing pains that I wasn't projectingly ready to do this year. But I fought through it to make it happen just for that. It's just like, at the end of the day, if I'm going to say I'm responsible for something, I like to always keep my word on what I say I'm at least going to do at the bare minimum. But the add-ons just got bigger, bigger, and bigger. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I don't know. But okay, let me figure it out. And, and God provided a way every step of the way when I thought that I was done. Like there was times where I just was like, it's not going to happen. I just need to stop. I mean, like, it's like, it's not all glory and I'm not perfect, but I had those moments and an angel will just always come. Somebody that was doing the work with me that I didn't know that was back there cheering me on, or heard me whispering and talking to somebody else and said, hey, I heard blah, 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 blah. Do you need some help, or do you need this? And what can I do? It was a lot of that. It was a lot of people that I didn't know was listening when I wasn't trying to be heard, So I'm very appreciative to those silent supporters, and as well as the ones that were out front supporting too as well. But it all worked in a sense to where I didn't do this alone at all. I was just there to just keep it going and be the warrior that I needed to be for the time frame. But it definitely, I was appreciative of the people that did believe in my vision and helped me by any cost, like to see it through.
And you showed that the whole weekend, your graciousness to everyone. And when I lack sleep, I'm not quite as gracious as I like to be. But you just, I mean, you held it together and you rolled with it like water, like whatever's coming, whatever changes we got to make, let's do it. At the community fair, we had a small issue that erupted, right? But you just said, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? And rolled through it. And
Everybody was
literally, yeah. So
it was great. I enjoyed it. It was funny because I literally, because I mean, 9 events in 3 days is no tall feat, even though the charitable aspect of it, that, the nonprofits that were involved were managing their own events. It was just a lot of talking. And I woke up that Sunday. I got some rest with no voice for the House of Love event. And I thanked God that I hired a host, because usually I would do the hosting for that. But I said, no, Nicole, step back. But man, I was happy that I was talking the way I was talking once I got there, because it was completely gone. I'm like, oh my God, we had the after hours that started. I had an event that started at 2 a.m. and ended at 6 a.m. before House of Love. So yeah, it was definitely intense, but I love it. And when you're in it, all you have to do is just put out the fires and keep going and keep people calm and just go with the flow. You can't do anything now. You're in it. So there's no reason to fuss. The doors are open. That's always just my main goal.
I was teasing you before we started recording and saying, to be in the profession you're in, you got to be a little crazy. You got to be a little out there to even consider it. Tell us the story about the reunion.
So shout out to Clark High School. That is, I did graduate from Clark High out here in Vegas. I'm actually planning our class reunion, and I begged them to wait just a little bit for me to get revved up on it, because I started both Pride and the reunion at the same time. But they're seeing me work how I work. They know me from high school, but in our committee group, they're getting inboxes of things at like 3 o'clock in the morning and 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock. And I'm like, you don't have to respond. And one of the committee members was like, why are you still up? And I'm like, well, things need to get done. And he couldn't believe that I was still up. And I told him, I was like, well, you said the same thing. I was like, you have to be a little, I said, I'm a little batty, and I said, LOL. So like, just don't mind me with it. But it's cool. This is another event that started out just my class reunion, but because of the pandemic, we're adding another class to that. So I'm doing 2 reunions in one and working with 2 classes to make sure that it's memorable for everybody. So that's 2 yearbooks and 2 cheerleading squads, and 2 classes and stuff, and separating it out, but still making it feel like we're all together. But the great thing about it is that I went to the magnet program, and we were all pretty much close. So it's kind of cool that we're all going to be together, and it's been great. But yeah, it's been nonstop. I have this, and then October Pride Festival, the 8th and 9th with Las Vegas Pride stage and 2 after parties, and creating that sense of community when I was just only supposed to do the parade and the stage. One of my business partners is like, nah, we're gonna do some after parties, and some community was like, no, we need to add some stuff to it. And I'm like, you know what? And that's what I need them for, because I'll be like, oh no, this is enough. They're like, no, Nicole, let's go. Like, let's do it. And we start adding on to it. And I do my best to hire strictly from the LGBT community. So like the DJs, the artists, throw in some allies that are supportive and are popular within our community. But it's going to be a great weekend.
Let me ask you this, and then we'll move on to a couple of my surprise questions I didn't tell you about.
Okay.
You sit in a very important role with a very important organization. You are the LGBTQIA plus chair. Tell us about that.
Oh, I am the co-chair to the National Action Network for the LGBT community for the Las Vegas chapter here. NAN is an organization that was founded by Reverend Al Sharpton. And the unique thing about Reverend Sharpton is that he is inclusive when it comes to his mindset on fighting for justice and against prejudice and racism. His model comes from Martin Luther King. And if we go back in the history of Martin Luther King, when he was an advocate in the community fighting for our rights in the civil rights era, he had people from the LGBTQIA on his committee and as advisors, and he was open. A lot of people don't know back then too as well. During the Stonewall riots, the Black Panther Party was also a part of that fight when the injustice was being done. So with Reverend Al Sharpton, with him being there during those times, I respect him wholeheartedly for still keeping that same model from what truly was happening back then, that we were present and we were all present for each other, people of color, with our rights. It's very important for me to as well, and I will speak openly and freely because I do feel like it is an issue within our community, and I always call this out. We separate each other through the sex and prejudice through between being gay and Black and the things that are happening. And I feel like we are hurting ourselves because our numbers are actually larger as far as the murders and the no names and things that are happening. And because we're still working on how that looks like for us to be inclusive, to come together to fight for our rights as African Americans, no matter our sexual preference, we are doing ourselves a disjustice. So I speak very public on that is my overall goal, to stop seeing sexual preference and see that, we are all people of color that are going through the same things. And we need to get back to how it was during the civil rights era, when they were actually helping and assisting each other. Not sure when it kind of fell, but, and I don't know too much because I'm not from that, but I do know that we could be doing a better job as a community with fighting for all of our rights and not just what we think is right. So the NAN helps me to communicate the messaging to Reverend Al Sharpton because the LGBTQIA chapter is national. And so my reports go straight to the national chapter and to Reverend Al Sharpton for the work that we're doing out here in Las Vegas. And I make sure and let him know everything that we're doing.
I just wanted to highlight that, and you touched on a couple of things. Thank you for bringing them into the conversation.
Yeah, I got kind of long-winded. I'm sorry, but it's really passionate to me.
No, it was great, and it wasn't long at all. But in my experience as a African American male who is gay, I also feel uncomfortable in African American spaces because of that. And a lot of people don't know who was with Dr. King in the fight. And a lot of people don't understand, like, no, we've been around, we've been doing this together. So why are we still hating each other? Why are we still making it harder for each other? Why are we making, another minority group feel like an outside group, not just a minority? So I'm so glad that you're giving voice to our issues and being present, because that's what, again, makes a difference. You're bridging these various sectors in our community together. So entertainment with activism, with politics. I mean, you are really, I'm just going to dub you like the connector or something, because it's phenomenal.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I just, you don't know. If you don't know what's out there, how can you have an opinion? How can you have a judgment? So I make sure to keep it very open to where anybody can come. So nobody can ever come back and say, well, I didn't know it's there. Get up and come out. Let's support each other. Let's not just support each other when we feel like it's needed for whatever reason, for your business or whatever. Like, we need to be here all the time for each other. So I will continue that fight. And everybody knows, my mom said for National Daughters Day yesterday, said she's not about that lip service. She's about that action. But I found it kind of funny because I like to voice my opinion, and I am about that lip service, because at the end of the day, I will always speak my truth with no fear. You know, if you don't like it, then okay, that's fine. Respectfully, we don't have to be on that level yet, but I'm always going to feel comfortable to speak as that want that person to as well, because we're all different, you know. So it's needed. I want to learn from you just as much as you want to learn from me.
Yeah. And speaking up is so critical. They go hand in hand with the, again, with minority communities. Sometimes you'll get the question, well, why do you need a gay pride? Which, that's a whole nother podcast episode, right? But you'll get, why do you need a black pride? Why do you need this? And the thing that I try to help people understand is it's not about supremacy. It's not about we want to be overlords of anyone else. It's that we haven't found representation in the mainstream. And so that we can see ourselves and take pride in ourselves instead of being demeaned. That's where these events and these communities come from. The goal isn't to have, a gay pride be needed. It's needed because it wasn't existing, that we weren't accepted. We weren't allowed to be in those spaces. We were oppressed. Same with African Americans and other minority groups. It's the same exact concept. The reason there's a Black entertainment television is because on just entertainment television, there weren't any Blacks. So, I just try to throw that in compassionately.
Mm-hmm. And I remember that too as a kid. I remember I used to watch MTV all the time and knew all the rock bands and stuff. But I knew my father and, my mother, they always had the barbecues and played the music, the records. But as a kid, I only thought that the R&B and hip hop was on the record player and, the tapes. So it's not like I didn't know it. Like I'm a total hip hop head. I didn't know there was music videos, so when I found BET and I just lost my mind. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a Kid and Play has a video to Too Hype? Like what?
You took it back. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's like when you think about it, it's not so much like, oh, I didn't know that, I didn't listen to hip hop or urban music. No, I just didn't know that we were making music videos and we were doing that. I just heard the records in the player, and the CDs and stuff. So it's good. It's good to have representation. Without that, we can't evolve and be who we are. And, Water seeks its own level. I love BET, Video Soul, and, all that stuff. And it actually helped me to understand who I am today because I love music and entertainment. I always say in my next life, I'm going to be a DJ. I love music that much. And going back to the experience with Pride, that's very much important to me. My DJs, the artists, the host, everything has to theme together. I just don't throw people in and be like, yo, let me get on the stage. No, we're not doing that. It has to make sense. So I'm talking to people, I'm vibing with you. Are you on the same energy as me? And are you for the community? That is something I had to learn this year. That was a tough lesson this year, understanding levels of support of the community. So I'm going to definitely take that more to heart this next year, that you are in support of doing community work, because that's important to me. And if that's not important to you, then that throws my whole thing off when we're just talking dollars. Like I need you to understand why I do certain things. And I'm a nonprofit, because you have people that come over and want to capitalize off of our community. And that's not what this is for, So I like for everybody's vibe to be on the same. So that's important as well. So it's like you're playing a concert, for the weekend. So, but yeah, I do understand that one.
I mean, you just kind of dropped the bomb there for just a moment. Yeah, Yeah. Let me ask this. If there was a song or, even maybe an album that represents to you the true spirit of Vegas, not necessarily, the challenges we're growing through, but the Vegas that you see us that we could become, what would that song be for you?
Holy Hannah. So it's so funny. My girlfriend just asked me what song would I dance to, dance to, because we're going to a wedding and that's what the bride asked us to, and I was on pause for like 5 minutes, like, please, babe, don't hang up. I'm going to think of something. I'm going to answer honestly, because and it's not going to be a LGBTQ type of what's for the community answer. I used to work for a really a popular nightclub out on the strip here in Las Vegas when I got out of college. And there was one song that just would get me hype, and it's probably like girl, Nicole, really. It was Diddy's Last Night. And it was with Keisha Cole. And I don't know why, but that song to me, that was like when I was going to the club and going to work, the evening, it was like that last night. I couldn't even get an answer, so it's like, you're at the club, you're out partying. So that just used to always just vibe with me. Like, I want my clients and people just to lose themselves for the night. Get away from your phone, and that's the one thing I want people, actually that goes, put away your phones and live in the moment. And that's why, that's actually truly what I want. I want people to learn how to put their phones away just for a moment and just be in it. So it's probably why I always like that song, but I used to just vibe to that song on the way to work. Like, yeah, we about to, have a good time. But it's just like, lose yourself for just 1 second. Not everything needs to be on camera. Sometimes this is good to meet a new friend and to be able to talk about it and just reminisce, because, we take those videos, those 20-minute videos and stuff. And when do we ever go back to them? When we're clearing out those posts and memes that we don't want anymore. And we happen to see, oh, that's when I was at that concert. Let me look at this real quick or whatever, or a Throwback Thursday. So living in the moment, and that's what that song represented to me, that it was like a Vegas night where you can just lose yourself so much.
I don't know the song, but thank you for sharing kind of the feel of it.
You're going to be like,
okay.
I'm going to send it to you. It's definitely like a song like you had a night last night and you didn't call me, like, where are you at? And that's
Vegas. Yeah.
And that's it. And that's representing a community. That's where the national platform comes to where I want to create that for our community, that you also have the Vegas experience, whether you're gay or straight. You come here and resort style living, have those parties, the bottles popping with the sparklers going up, you know what I mean? And feel comfortable that you can see and do what you see on TV your friends doing, and you might not want to go to a straight club, or do certain things, and it'd be at affordable, reasonable price too, because Vegas gets kind of pricey. So
little bit there.
Yeah, so that's it right there for me.
I love it. If you had the magic wand that you could wave and change anything about our city to make it really live up to the hype, so to speak, to really truly make Las Vegas compassionate, what would that be for you?
Well, I think we have the compassion. It's there. We're definitely passionate. We definitely show it when we need to. I think we need to always have a conscious effort to show up all the time, not just when there's a problem. Because we come out, we come out in numbers. But we need just more consistency so that we can continue to grow the community in that way, and not just when there's an issue. Because that goes back again to, like, if you're wanting the respect of the legislation and the government and, the city officials, you have to show up more so than just not always at when there's a problem. So we have our staple individuals here in the community, like I said, like that show up, they come out, they speak on our behalf. But I think as a whole, there's more power in numbers. So you don't always necessarily have to be that person that holds that title to feel like you need to go to a city hall meeting. You can just sit in the city hall meeting and just listen to what's going on. I listen to Channel 2 all the time, and it's really hilarious half the time, and hearing the stuff that's going on. But just, again, being present and being consistent with that, and not just when it's, it's time to get the popcorn out, like, ooh, who said what? Let's listen to this board meeting, hear about what the construction that's going on, the bills that are being passed, and how did we come out of this pandemic the way we did? How did they roll it out? That was important to me, on how how were we going to get to concerts and large gatherings? And it was a rollout, and they explained that there, so again, everything's there. We just have to take advantage of our resources.
And that's one of my big clarion calls. Please be involved. I mean, an elected official is a representative. They represent the people, and we are the people. And if we're not participating in the process, how can they adequately, truly represent us? And we have to show up as our authentic selves, bringing all of our various identities to the table so that everyone's interest is considered and met. So I'm so glad you shared that. So glad.
Yeah.
So, last question. How do you define compassion?
By just doing what your heart says, going off your first mind, and not being easily influenced when you think that you need to fit in. Do everything from the heart, even if it's not, your heart might be a little, but your authentic self, because that's allowing energetically for other things to play out the way it should. So no matter how we feel, who we love, who we don't love, be you, because we're all here to teach, we're all here to learn, and you showing up as you is helping that next person to receive their blessing and their gift in life. So just being yourself, and don't hold back, no matter how you feel. It's not always about it needs to be lovey and airy. No, if you don't like something, or something you don't agree with somebody, be your authentic self, and that's compassion to me.
I think we can leave it there.